In this video, we'll be using green yarn, red yarn, black yarn, pink yarn, and white yarn. We also have a pair of scissors, darning needle, stitch markers, a crochet hook, fabric glue, and fiber fill. Since there are 20 stitches on the head and 20 stitches on the body, I lined them all up and used stitch markers to keep them together. That way, when we sew the stitches to put them together, they will be aligned with one another and everything will match. We're going to start on the body right below the last stitch on the head. We're going to go in between the two stitches that are adjacent to each other on the body. In the middle of the two stitches, it looks like there's a little X. Once we're finished going through the two stitches on the body, we're going to match it up with the two stitches on the head. We're going to go into these two top stitches that are adjacent to each other, and we're going to go through the middle of those stitches with the X in the middle. And once we're done with those, we're going back into the body. We're going to start in that stitch where we finished the last stitch of the body and going into the adjacent stitch. So into these two stitches, you can see that little X in the middle. And then we're going back into the head and we're finding the matching two stitches. The first one being the one that we finished and the one adjacent to that one. Then we're going back into the body, into the next two stitches. We're going into the previous and the adjacent. And then we're going back into the head. We're going into the previous and the adjacent. As always, we want to make sure that all of the stitches are nice and tight. So we're going to pull this tail. We're going to remove our stitch marker. The head and body should still match since we've done a lot of stitches. And here we go again into the body to the two adjacent stitches, and then back into the head with the two adjacent stitches. Again, while making the stitches, we want to pull on the tail to make sure that the stitches are going in nice and tight. We're going to continue the same process around the head and body until we finish. I'm at the back of the head, and since this is the halfway point, I'm going to add more stuffing into the head. I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and here we have this opening, and that's where I'm going to put the extra stuffing. So I have the extra stuffing here, and I'm going to place it inside. I'm going to stuff both the head and the body until it's nice and firm again. Most of the stuffing will be going into the head. As we continue to stuff, we're also going to shape the head because it's really important to get that correct shape of the head. Once we're satisfied with the shape of the head, we're going to finish sewing the head and body together and tightening the stitches. And once we've completed stitching them together, we're going to stick the darning needle back into the stitches between the head and the body, and then we're just going to poke it through the end of the body so that the stitch doesn't come out. And then we're going to make sure to tighten it so the stitches are nice and tight. Finally, we're going to cut off the yarn, and now we're ready to stitch on the eyes. So now we have our eyes, but before we put them onto the head, we're going to sew them together. I'm going to use the 3 stitches where the color change takes place. So here we have 3 stitches. There's 1, 2, and 3. We have a darning needle with our white yarn. And then I'm going to go into the 3 stitches on this side. There's 1, 2, and 3. And then I'm going to go back up on this side. I'm going to make sure that the eyes are tight together. Looks like they're pretty tight. Then I'm going to turn them over. And here I'm going to cut both of the tails shorter. And then I'm going to tie them in the back. And I'm going to make a knot so that they don't come undone. And now I'm going to take the darning needle and tuck in the tails. I kind of cut these a little bit short, so I have to put the needle in first and then thread it through. That was a little hard to pull through. And once we've weaved in both ends, we're going to cut them or tuck them in. And now we're done with attaching our eyes together. Before we attach the eyes to the head, we're going to find the middle of the head first. I have this piece of yarn with a darning needle on each side. I'm going to look at the top of the head at this middle stitch to find out where the middle is. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitch holes. So at the 4.5 mark, it should be the middle. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so and a half is between the 2 full crochets. So I'm going to put it right here, one of the darning needles, and I'm going to have the eye facing forward. So I'm going to get this darning needle and just set it down, and this should be the middle of the head. And so we're going to put the bottom of the eyes at the bottom of the 7th row. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the 7th row, so we're going to go into the bottom of it. So approximately right here. So this should be the middle. So I'm just going to remove this. And leave this here so that we know where the middle is. So for the bottom of the eyes, we're going to go into 4 crochets on the bottom with this green yarn that I have on the darning needle. So where the color changes, we're going to count our crochets. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and here on the 5th one is where we're going to start putting our yarn at the bottom of the eye. So we're going to go through 4 from this point. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to put our yarn through these here. Okay, so we're going to use the yarn to attach the eye to the head. So I'm going to cut it about right here. We probably don't even need this much, but it's always good to have too much than too little. So we have this eye done, and now we're going to do the same on this eye. So for our second eye, we're going to count 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to start on this 5th one. So we're going to go under, and then we're going to go 4 across. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to end at the end of this 4th one. And then we're going to pull the yarn through. And then we're going to cut it. Oops. So now we have our eyes ready to attach to the head. We're going to place the middle of the eyes where we have the middle of the head, where we have our needle and the white yarn placed. So it's approximately right around here where the middles meet. So now we have one of the tails of the yarn attached to this darning needle, and here we're going to start putting our needle into the head. So here's the middle we have lined up. We're going to skip one hole here, and then in this next hole we're going to go 4 stitches down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and so we're going to go into this hole here. Let's try and move this out of the way. Okay, so we have this, and then we're just going to pull it through. I'm going to tilt this. And then we're going to go back into the 4 holes on the eyes. So we're going to go through there. And back out the other side. Okay. So now we have the 2 ends, and we're just going to pull on them to tighten the eyes onto the head. Okay, so we're basically done with this side. And we're going to tie a knot here. So now we're ready to put on the other side of the eyes. We're going to get that situated in the right place, and we're going to get our darning needle onto our yarn. So here we're going to skip that first hole and then go into that second hole. Turn this around again. So not this one, but this one here. And then we're going down 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and out. Then we're going to go into the eye. So back into this hole here and into the eye. And then we're going to pull the 2 tails together, and then we're done attaching the bottom of the eye, and then we're going to tie it in the back. And then a knot. So now we have the eyes attached to the bottom, and now we're going to work on attaching the top. Before moving on to attaching the top of the eyes, be sure to tuck in the tails from attaching the bottom of the eyes. The top of the first eye is already attached, so we're going to do the second eye. We're going to start by going down 3 of the green rows. There's 1, 2, and 3. We're going to go into the stitches in the middle of the eye here. So this stitch is towards the middle, and then we're going to go up onto the other side. So it looks like we're going right through the middle of the back of the eye. So you'll see half a circle on the top. We're going to pull part of our yarn through. We're going to leave half of it. And then on the back here, you can see from the very top of the head where the first stitch is, we're going to go down to the bottom of the second row. That would be in this line here. We're going to begin this stitch where the beginning of the first stitch begins, and from here we're going to go 4 stitches down, and then we're going to pull our yarn up, and then we're going to go back into the stitch of where we began in the eye, and then we're going to pull our 2 tails to tie in the eye on the top, and then we're going to tie a nice and sturdy knot so that it doesn't come loose. After making the knot, you're going to weave in the tails and then use the same procedure to attach that first eye. And this completes sewing on the eyes. Now that we're done with the crazy eyes, we're going to put the cheeks on. So for the cheeks, I have one here with the glue already on, and I'm going to go 1 row down from where we attach the eyes. So you can see that we attach the eyes here, and there's 1 row. So we're going to go to the bottom of that row, and we're going to put the top of the cheek where this bottom of the row is. So right about here. And we're going to put it to the side, you know, where a cheek would go. So here's where his cheek comes out. So right around here, just so that you can see it when you see his eyes. And then we're going to do the same with the other side. For this cheek, we're placing it in the same area, 1 row down from the bottom of the eye, and it's 10 stitches down from the edge of the other cheek. From the middle, that should be the 5th stitch between both of the cheeks, and there should be 4 stitches between the middle and each cheek. With our cheeks completed, we're ready to work on the mouth. For Keroppi's mouth, we're going to place the bottom of his lip where there's a V 2 rows above the last stitch on the bottom. It is also in the center of the face. We're going to mark this spot by putting a darning needle into that stitch. It should be that middle stitch between the cheeks, so that 5th stitch, it should be right below that. For the beginning of his mouth, we're going to go 2 stitches down from the edge of the cheek, and then 2 rows down. We're going to take our darning needle and place it into that stitch. Then we're going to go down to where we marked the bottom of his mouth with the red darning needle. So right down into that stitch. And now we're going to go back into that stitch where we started. We're going to go across and go into the stitch that's 2 stitches across from the edge of the cheek and 2 rows down. Then we're going to pull our yarn through, and you can see the other side of his mouth formed. And now we're going to go down to the bottom of his mouth, and we're going to end up back at the starting of the mouth. And with our 2 ends, we're going to tie them together. And then I'm going to cut the tails. And then make a knot. Then I'm going to trim those tails just a little bit more so there's not much to tuck in. And I'm just going to get this darning needle and just tuck that knot right in place. And then we have that cute little smile. Now we're ready to attach the arms to Keroppi, and we can sew these on however we want to. We could make him do that surprised face that he does with his arms next to his mouth, or we could have his arms down, or however we want to. Here I'm going to make him wave with this arm. So let's sew that on. I have the darning needle and the arm, and I'm going to place it right above the magic circle. And I'm going to go right through the stitches to the other side. Since we have the armholes on his shirt, I'm going to place it where those armholes are. And they are about 2 rows down from the neck. So I'm going to place it on this second row from the top, and I'm going to go into 2 stitches across. Then I'm going to pull the yarn through, leaving a tail so the arm doesn't fall off, and then I'm going back into the same stitches back into the arm right above the magic circle. And once I have the yarn through, I'm going to remove the needle and pull on the 2 tails to tighten up the arm. And once it's nice and tight, I'm going to tie a knot at the bottom. And once it's on nice and securely, we're going to move on to our next arm and tuck and cut everything at the end. For the next arm, we're going to start by going through the 2 stitches at the palm area of his hand, right above the magic circle. We're going to place his hand right by his mouth under the cheek, so he'll have that half surprised look. And like the other arm, we're going to sew it 2 rows down on the side of his body, and we're going to go through 2 of the stitches. And once we have it in place, we're going to go back into the palm of his hand where we started, and then out the other side. And then we're going to pull the 2 tails to tighten up our hand, and it looks like it's in the correct place. And now we're going to tie a knot in the inside area of where his arm is so that it's not visible. And once it's on nice and tight, we're going to hide all of the tails and cut them off. Now we're going to add Keroppi's feet to his body. We're going to start by putting our yarn through these 3 stitches. So here is the magic circle beginning, and it's just right below it. So there's 1, 2, and 3 stitches. And then we're going to look at the bottom of the body, and here's the middle stitch that begins the body. And so we have 1, 2, 3 stitches. So we're going to put it through these 3. Since we have it this way, we're going to put our yarn this way. So we have our foot on the body, and then we're going to go back up into the foot here. And then we'll be able to tighten up our stitch. And then I'm just going to tie a knot to secure it. And then we're done attaching his foot. He basically sits on his foot. Now we're ready to sew on the other foot. We have our yarn into that second row after the magic circle beginning, and we have it through 1, 2, 3 stitches. So here we are at the bottom, middle, and so we're going to go through this stitch here since there's 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to go into that first stitch. That pulls up our foot. Then we're going to go back into the foot. Oops. So we're going to go back into the foot here and back out. And then here we can pull our two ends and it'll tighten up the foot. And then we can tie our knot. And then we're done attaching both of the feet and we just have to tuck in our ends. Now that we finish adding Keroppi's hands and feet, we're ready to put his shirt on. We're going to make sure we have the shirt facing the right side up, and then we're going to slip it over his feet. And now we're going to put his arm through the armhole in the shirt. And here you might have to fold the hands a little bit to get it through that hole because his hands are pretty wide. But once we get the hand through, we can just slowly pull that shirt down over the whole arm. And then we have the arm out of the shirt, and we're going to work on the other side. And again, we're going to fold the little hands so that it could fit through that hole. The arms are sewed on pretty tight, so I could probably really pull at his arm to get it out of the hole, but I'm just going to do it slowly. And now that we've got his arm out of the hole, you can see how cute he looks in his striped shirt. But we're not finished with the shirt yet. We have one more accessory to add to it. Can you guess what it is? Now we're ready to add the pupils to Keroppi's eyes. So I have glued the bottom of the pupil, and I'm going to place it where the side of the pupil hits this fourth row. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to place it towards the middle. So it's going to hit that fourth row when I press it down. So I have the pupil for this other side, and here I'm going to place it towards the middle and then press it down until it hits the edge of the fourth row. And that's basically Keroppi. Hi! And I almost forgot, we got to add this little bow to Keroppi's shirt. We have it glued in the back, and now we're just going to find that center and place it right on the shirt. So here's the center of his mouth, and I have the center of his bow lined up with that. And we're just going to press it down a little. And now we've completed making our Keroppi amigurumi. This concludes our tutorial on how to make the Keroppi amigurumi. I thank you for taking the time to watch the videos, and if you found them useful, please hit that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. Have a great day.